Hello, it's Tania Gabrielle, Wealth Astro-Numerologist. Welcome to Star Codes, where we dive into the astrology and numerology of current celestial codes and events. Now, today we're going to dive into Aquarius because we're coming up on the first Mercury retrograde of the year, which happens in Aquarius, and we have this incredible stellium that is evolving this week in Aquarius and really coming to a head in the first 2 weeks of February. So it's a really important time to look at the sign of freedom. Now, everything begins when Jupiter, the Sun, and Saturn come together on January 25th in a stellium in a powerful month-long activation of Aquarius. And that continues when Mercury goes retrograde on January 30th, and on January 28th, 2 days before that, we have the Leo full moon with the Sun in Aquarius merged exactly with Jupiter, both at 9 degrees Aquarius, opposite the moon in Leo. And then on the 1st of February, we have Venus entering Aquarius, and that's when so many planets are in that sign at that point that it is a huge activation. We have Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury retrograde, Venus, and then the Sun, of course, is in Aquarius at this time. And then the moon will join as well for the Aquarius new moon. That will be 6 planets, or 5 planets and the Sun, our star, in Aquarius. So we have so much going on. And I just want to also mention this full moon in Leo, which takes place on January 28th. And you can go to the previous episode of Star Codes to listen to that amazing activation. That full moon creates a T-square, the most powerful activation in astrology, with Uranus. And Uranus rules Aquarius. And Uranus is merged with Mars at this time. It's really quite stunning, all the events. It's really built up to a point of no return in a way. And I mean that in a good way. Because even though we're going to talk about freedom in a deep way today, freedom of choice, and the freedom to choose your destiny and choose how you live your life, there are moments when it is very clear that you cannot go back, right? That what's done is done. And this will become very, very clear at this time. Mercury retrograde begins on January 30th. It lasts 3 weeks. And then a couple days later, Venus enters Aquarius as well and joins Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury retrograde, and the Sun. So it's a rapid acceleration of liberation from old linear competitive paradigms with top-down leadership, right? You toe the line, you follow the rules. You either get a good grade or a bad grade, and depending on how you do, you progress here or there. It's all linear, right? So there's no spiraling effect. There's no sense of creation, of freedom. And so Venus is the planet of creativity. And it joins in an incredible moment here in Aquarius, which is the sign that is square to Taurus. Now, why is Taurus important? Because that's where Uranus resides. So Uranus rules Aquarius, and Uranus is squaring, meaning causing a lot of tension, activation energy with all these planets that are now congregating in its own sign. So it really is calling us to act in a big way. So we need to be very willing to open up our perspective to new ways of doing things, feeling things, thinking about things, reflecting on things. And of course, Mercury retrograde is about reflections. So we need to be very open to new developments and accepting those new developments. And this is both personally and professionally. The impact is really complete in our life. So our ability to communicate, which Aquarius definitely governs along with Mercury retrograde, our ability to communicate on multi-dimensions is being shifted to a great degree. Any retrograde of any planet takes us within. And when Mercury, the planet of the mind and communication and connection and how we express ourselves verbally especially, but in general through words, through frequency, it also governs the internet, governs media, anything to do with communication. When that planet turns retrograde, we always reflect more. We go within for answers, which is a good thing. when we tend to have 3 Mercury retrogrades in every calendar year. Sometimes there are 4, but usually there are 3. And this year, all 3 Mercury retrogrades are in air signs, which is also amazing. So Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. And air is the frequency, the element of communication. So if you think about radio waves, you know that air is the instant connection through that we use electricity. Everything that is about our own communication on Earth is governed through the idea of air. So air signs connect us instantly. So in Aquarius, the air is represented by this universal consciousness, this unity consciousness. So we are all breathing the same air on Earth, for example. The idea or the reality, the truth that we are all one. We're all in this together, right? What happens to one of us happens to each of us energetically. So many changes are developing at this time. And Aquarius is very connected to change because the sense of freedom that it represents is fueled by this movement. That's why one of the reasons that Aquarius is represented by the wave, which is a frequency wave, is because there is such quick movement, so many quick downloads that we receive, instantaneous aha moments. And these rapid shifts that are happening can be navigated with ease and grace if you tap into your sensory perception. And that's why all these planets are congregating in Aquarius, to make us so aware on every level. All 5 senses. Our most important sense, of course, is intuition, but our body gives us feedback all the time if we just listen to it. The subtle responses in your body are the sensory perception that is also being activated now. Remember that Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, is in Taurus, an earth sign, and Taurus is very much rooted in physicality, pleasure, sensory perception. So you want to be very aware and very willing and committed to listening to those signs that are happening within you and to you, right? And embracing the risk of following those signs, because it will set you free. It will liberate you to not be enslaved by your mind, the lower mind, which is Mercury at the lower level. The planet Mercury represents the lower mind, right? And then if you only navigate your life with your mind, which cannot be intuitive, then you will be in that matrix that does not listen to intuition, because it is literally in a web of the past. It just functions on what you've experienced, and you take that past understanding to navigate the present, which never works because the present is new, it's changed. So you always need to be inspired to navigate the present moment. So this whole combination is basically bringing it all together. And if you're willing to embrace that risk of being free to explore and listen, you can really move through this period of intense activation with a lot of grace. Now, because freedom is the key energy of the Aquarian age, and because we're in a 5 universal year in 2021, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5, free will is a very big concept and gift that we need to embrace and really understand. Aside from loving, free will is the greatest gift we have, and our ability to be conscious of thoughts and reflect on life, Mercury retrograde, distinguishes us from animals whose ability to actually reflect is very rudimentary, of course. And so not only do we have the ability to be conscious of our thoughts, which are the software of our brain. Thoughts are the way the brain uses your mind to navigate practical matters, to live life on Earth. Not intuitive matters, not creation, but the practicality of life. So software in our brain is always working, and being conscious of that software is very, very akin to being human. But the free will comes in when we have the ability to choose what we think about once we become conscious of it. So, and on top of that, we have the ability to choose how we respond to what we've become aware of. How do we respond to our thoughts? So to put it another way, unlike animals, we have the ability to override the software if we choose to do so. And that's pretty miraculous if you think about it, because it allows us to progress and raise our vibration in a rapid way if we choose to do so. So it allows human beings to evolve incredibly fast. And through that ability to choose, this freedom of choice, this free will, we are co-creators with life. So free will makes it possible to co-create with life itself. And that's pretty amazing. I mean, you and I have the ability to shape life alongside life itself. And I don't know many things that are more fun than creating. Yes, there are some, but creating itself is so exhilarating, and it covers the gamut. It covers not only artistic endeavors, making art, making music, but telling stories, writing books, creating new products, uncovering new information, producing anything, machines, composing music, designing and engineering cities and buildings and structures, developing technology, building institutions, museums, parks, schools. It's just an incredible force. It is about discovering new healing endeavors, healing products, and the list goes on and on. And so this is what sets us apart from the rest of creation, is this ability. The ability to both override and go beyond our instincts and the rest of our software. And that is what has manifested so many wonderful creations that we are benefiting from and creating ourselves. So free will can be expressed in any way that we want it to, that we choose to. It also allows us to destroy life, to destroy peace, to destroy love, to even destroy our own happiness. It allows us to do things like be competitive at the expense of others so that we move forward, right? Be afraid, neglect taking care of planet Earth or our children or whatever the case may be. So it allows us to make choices that also lead to outcomes that are detrimental. And so free will comes at a cost. And the cost is that in order to bask and enjoy in the benefits of having that freedom, we will also at times experience those low vibrational outcomes of our choices until we learn to use our free will in a way that is more positive, more wise. But here's the really amazing part. From the perspective of source, of love, of the universe, free will is honored because we have been given this incredible gift, and no choice is considered wrong or bad. Trial and error are important. They help us to discover what, through feedback, what is beneficial and what isn't. And when we discover what is beneficial, what is filled with positive expansion and growth, and what is not, we also understand that even so-called bad decisions or bad outcomes or unpleasant results can be appreciated for the inner gifts that they awaken within us, the understanding that they bring. And so part of those gifts may be that we receive more courage. We have to overcome a challenge. So that gives us patience. That gives us perseverance. It gives us compassion, gives us wisdom. This is very important to understand. So the goodness of life, the benevolence of creation means that no matter what you choose, no matter what choice you make, it will contribute to your evolution. And Aquarius governs the ability to understand the expansion of free will into potentials that are way beyond our limited mind. a universal wisdom that goes to the higher mind and joins us together as a human race and inspires us to do what is for everyone's highest good. What's for your highest good is for everyone's highest good, always. Aquarius governs the ability of the mind to become conscious, to self-reflect and become aware. And Mercury retrograde is pointing us inward, reminding us that the source of wisdom is always internal, through listening. So reflection is liberation in this case, right? So that evolution has a goal because it always goes towards love. To evolve is to go towards love. And if you look at the word love, it is embedded in the word evolve and evolution. So there is an anagram in both that spells love. And here's the thing. Why does it always lead towards love even if you suffer? Because suffering inevitably puts you back on track. It puts you back in the flow. So you get to choose, as always, which way to go. And then, depending on if there is suffering, you get to choose on how long that suffering takes. Think of suffering as a natural way to always point you to love, because who wants to stay in suffering? We all want to be in love, right? So even suffering is a gift. And every choice that you make either celebrates life and enhances that creation, or it shows you the lower vibrational outcomes of your choice. And in so doing, it broadens your understanding. It actually makes you more compassionate. And that's the thing. I mean, choices always lead to something. And you may not be able to articulate what you've learned, what you've discovered. You may not be even aware of it consciously. But through every choice, life is teaching you something. It changes you. And that is the essence of Aquarius. And remember, Jupiter and Saturn are now navigating through Aquarius. And Jupiter governs that wisdom, that learning, and Saturn governs that ability to be taught. Saturn is the teacher. So consider for a moment that the choices that lead to the most suffering also often bring the most profound gifts, the greatest understanding, the deepest learning. And so what can be learned when you suffer? Well, the first thing that comes to mind or to heart is compassion. Compassion is super important because without compassion, you cannot identify. You cannot have empathy. And empathy and compassion are the start of that journey of love. They will naturally govern to the point where you want to serve others because you will identify with others. You want to help relieve their suffering. And you understand then that service is love. So love is the ability to identify with another and see that they're mirroring you as if they were you. You're literally empathizing as if you are talking to yourself or helping yourself. So giving to others as you would want to be given to is the natural flow resulting from the identification of others. And suffering helps that happen. So love is one of the most incredible gifts that comes from suffering. And so if you investigate even deeper than this, because Aquarius is very much about inquiry, investigation, and you investigate deeper into what suffering creates, you will uncover that it instills wisdom as well. The birth of freedom is actually embedded in the very experience that seems to hold you hostage, the suffering, the fear, right? The birth of freedom actually originates there because what you'll notice is that if you do not love, you feel a pain in your heart. You feel your heart closed to love. And that suffering reveals the importance of love itself. And so then you seek that very thing that you are closing down. And every little act that leads you home to your heart is based on a choice that you make. So the freedom is, it comes into play that whatever you choose, even if it is a choice not to love, it moves you closer because you ultimately will come to that place where the suffering is held at bay because what you realize is it is not creating more love. So that eventually leads to being enlightened. and you can't help but go in that direction. And that's how the universe is created. So with every act of love, you become lighter, you become more delighted by life itself, you cast out darkness. And what is darkness? It is not evil, it is just the absence of light. So when you ignore the light while giving your precious attention to something that doesn't matter, right? Because the darkness basically represents that which does not exist. So darkness is the only seeming absence of something else that does actually exist, which is love, which is light. Light and love are the same. So light and love are both the energy that fuel life. They are the same. So there is actually nothing but light. So darkness is only the seeming absence of something else that actually exists, whereas darkness itself is the ignorance of light. And ignoring the light while giving your attention to something else, that will take you into darkness. So it is not real. It is basically something that is the illusion. You're in the web of illusion. So there's really nothing but light, nothing but love. It is the substance that creates the universe. It is the substance from where we come from, right? We're born from this creation. And the only thing that can obscure that light is choosing to focus on something else instead. That is the choice you have. That is the free will you have. You are free to choose to acknowledge what is true, your unity with all creation, or to acknowledge your sense of separateness from that creation, which creates fear, alienation, and those are the byproducts of that software, right? That programming. So ignorance is believing in that software, and ignorance is thinking that that software accurately presents the truth of who you are when it is just an illusion. So that is the reality. That is the actual darkness. And so the enlightenment is knowing the truth of who you are. You are not that software. You are not your mind. You are not the programming, right? This Mercury retrograde in Aquarius is showing you that go within to the source of love and light in your heart. Live in that truth. That is your choice. And that is what Aquarius's impact is attracting to your conscious awareness. So pay really close attention to all that is appearing in your life right now. Respond to whatever it is, your thoughts especially, only when you're inspired to do so. Speak only when inspired to do so. Take that extra time to listen. Align with the wisdom of life. Align with just being in silence. Hearing what you've never heard before. And you'll set yourself free from that darkness, from that software, that voice in your head that never stops, right? You'll set yourself free. And being set free from darkness is the greatest freedom there is, right? That is really the true freedom that we have, the free will to join love and light, to join source. So this is the time, this Aquarius activation with all these planets, to set yourself free by exploring this, by becoming conscious, by becoming the observer, the listener, and understanding who you are at soul level, which is a star being. You come from the stars. And by the way, one way to discover your unique frequency is your own star code itself, which you can do at starcodeclass.com. I have a free webinar there for you, a masterclass that I created. It has a free handout. It goes through your birthday code and your birth name code, the degree numbers in your astrology birth code. It's really fun. So enjoy that at starcodeclass.com. And remain present, remain free from that cycle of programming that is based on fear. Anytime you feel yourself go into that place of separation, anger, fear, frustration, take a time out. Take 10 minutes to breathe. Close your eyes. Go outside in nature. Do whatever you need to do. Listen to beautiful music. But it really is critical at this time because we're really moving in a rapid way. Remember, air signs, very rapid way into this new way of embracing truth when it shows up, however it may show up. And if you are there, you can truly acknowledge who you are, a being of light and love. And that is the truth. It's not your mind. So don't identify with that, okay? So that's really the main message of this Mercury retrograde in Aquarius. I hope you have a beautiful week. And I know there's a full moon in Leo. It's very activating this final week of January and the first 2 weeks of February. And I will be with you next week again for our next Star Code podcast. And I just wish you lots of love, lots of light. And I'll see you next week.